Ashland Street in Ashland behind Wendy's. Now, downtown Grants Pass on 6th between G&H next to Evangel. On the web, jaustinbrokers.com. Every now and then we have business segments. We talk with locally run business folks around here. We call it Whose Business Is It Anyway? And this time around, part of celebrating life is also helping people who are probably dealing with the end-of-life situations, too. And it's a different kind of business we're talking about this time. It's Lovejoy Hospice. And we had them in a few months back. Maybe it was a few weeks ago. I forget. But one way or the other, it's a really interesting take. And it's someone who had a mother-in-law, died, I suppose, very slowly is a way to talk about it after Margaret suffered a stroke a number of years ago. This is something I've had a dog in this fight. I've been interested in this process and the services available. Let me tell you a little bit about Lovejoy Hospice first off. They cover Jackson and Josephine counties, and they've been doing this since '81. And their slogan is the heart of caring. And a lot of people think that, oh, God, okay, you guys are just up in Grants Pass. Yeah, you mean you come down here too? Well, to talk about this and sort of the services available, Deneen Silva is the executive director of Lovejoy Hospice. How you doing, Deneen?
Good, thank you.
Great to see you here. Nancy, we talked with you last time. Nancy Livingood.
Yes.
And you are a social support services manager. Are you actually involved directly with patients or clients, or how does that work?
Yes. I do a little bit of everything.
Yes, and yes.
Yes,
okay.
yes, and yes.
All right, very good. Now, Lovejoy, this is not a traditional business per se. It's a 501c3. It's a nonprofit kind of organization, right?
That's correct.
Okay, so Asante doesn't yank your chain. Providence is not yanking your chain or in control. You guys are all a separate.
That's right. We're freestanding, so we are not affiliated with any corporate healthcare entity.
Mm-hmm. All right. So how did they get started back in the 1980s?
Well, Lovejoy Hospice was founded by Jean Lovejoy, who is our namesake. And originally, Lovejoy began as a volunteer service that was provided to people facing life-limiting illness. So we have a long history in the community over in Josephine County, and we do a very, very nice job of helping people through this time in their life.
Okay, so 33 years now.
Long time.
Been doing this. And what actually are hospice and hospice-type services? Something tells me that we may not necessarily understand the real process. You want maybe you take that over, Nancy?
Sure. Hospice is a model of care that doesn't just focus on treating somebody's illness. The focus is helping that person be comfortable and have the best quality of life they can when they're dealing with a life-limiting or life-threatening illness. So the care that we provide is nursing care, social work support for problem-solving, counseling, family dynamics, spiritual care if people want it, hands-on care through a hospice aide, volunteers that can do errands. So the term is holistic. We try to work with the person's body, mind, spirit, and family to make them more comfortable and have a good life.
Is this generally something which has a time limit or a time frame as people pass?
Well, there is no limitation for hospice services. The requirement to be eligible for the hospice benefit is that a person has had to receive a diagnosis with a prognosis of 6 months or less if their condition runs the usual and customary course.
So that is considered... you are hospice worthy, I guess.
I guess
if
hospice
you want to call it
appropriate.
that, hospice appropriate.
Sure.
But then I would imagine that some people defy the odds and keep going.
You
right?
know, they do. And the thing that I think is so interesting that we find once we enter into somebody's life and we're providing this care is I never hear anyone say, I wish I would have waited longer to receive hospice services. What happens is they wish they would have gotten us on board sooner.
So... is this always about pain management or treatment, or is there more to it than that?
I think there's so many other aspects of it. I think pain management is one of the aspects. I think dignity and quality of life and, the fundamentals in the death and dying process, we really do a collective job of helping somebody meet their own personal goals and really determine what's important to them throughout that last period of their life, however long that might be.
Okay, so it's volunteers?
We do have volunteers.
You do have
yes.
volunteers. Do people live with you in a hospice, or do you go to a center? This is what I'm trying to figure out.
Sure, it's confusing. There's a lot of aspects to it. So hospice is provided, it's a service that's provided anywhere that the patient lives. So it could be a home, a residential care facility, nursing home, foster home.
Wherever the person is.
Wherever they live.
All right.
And we're not there 24 hours a day. We have skilled professionals that come in and provide those services. We work as a group who are the eyes and ears for the attending physician, who actually continues to maintain a relationship with their patient.
So there's a doctor kind of if there's a control factor, then there's a doctor that it's in control of the medication, I guess?
There are two doctors that actually oversee our patient population. So we have a medical director. Actually, we have two physicians that are medical directors. And then the patient's primary care physician or attending physician still is writing their orders for their medication and overseeing their care.
Yeah, and I don't want to sound, unkind or slapdash when I bring this up, but there was a part of me in my head that was saying, oh, okay, here's the people showing up with the morphine.
Sure.
You see what I'm getting at?
And that's such a myth. So I'd love to talk about that for a moment.
Yeah, go ahead, please.
Not every hospice patient is on morphine. In fact, statistically, if a person has hospice care, they actually have this great pain management that they will use less opioids if they're being managed well with skilled people who do this day in and day out.
All right. Now, speaking of the opioids, though,
sure.
I guess that is an additional service that you have now branched out into.
Well, pain management has always been a part of hospice care. So,
let's say if you're suffering from, you're at an end stage of cancer, it
sure.
can be very painful for people.
Absolutely can.
And there is no reason to be suffering there in your end that way.
That is correct. Right.
Okay. So, what about the palliative care? You call it?
Yes.
Okay. So this is something in addition or kind of parallel to hospice services?
It is in addition, and I suppose you could say palliative care is an overarching principle, using the term palliative care in that way, that if somebody is really sick, suffering, whether it's pain, it could be terrible nausea, it could be weakness. So it's not just pain. Whatever the thing is or the things are, the symptoms that are distressing to that person and sapping their quality of life. Palliative care as a model aims to help folks who are not yet at end of life, but maybe they're seriously, seriously ill. Maybe they're going through chemotherapy. Maybe
Sure.
they have a severe heart condition and they are having surgery. They're having different treatments.
They're not at end of life, but they're not really being taken care of either.
They're not at end of life, and in addition to the care that they're getting perhaps through their oncologist, their cardiologist, a palliative care physician, we have a board-certified palliative care physician, can go in as a consultant, just like any other specialty,
That's
a pulmonologist. And that person's focus is the symptom control to have better quality of life and better outcomes while they're having their treatment. So we started a palliative care program a year ago. It's called Lovejoy Palliative Care Program. And that some folks call it kind of a medical pre-hospice, but there are folks who can be appropriate for that palliative care program and not need hospice, and their symptoms are resolved, their treatment is finished, and they go on.
Everybody wins on that one.
Exactly.
Yeah, sure.
However, for those folks who maybe their condition is going to continue to worsen and move more toward the end of life, they can be receiving palliative care now while they're still receiving curative care and eventually choose to go on hospice.
Deneen Silva and Nancy Livengood are here, and they're with Lovejoy Hospice. If you have a question about it, we're happy to take your phone call here, 770-5633. It's not exactly something that you have in here often, you're talking about this process. The reason I was curious about the palliative care is that I do understand that people on opioids and other painkillers have come under such heavy-duty scrutiny, in which doctors have been afraid to prescribe what they really need.
Certainly.
Because all of a sudden they attract the attention of the DEA. Well, obviously you're one of those doctors. You're a pill shop or whatever, pill mill, I think it is, and you're out there selling your opioids on the street. Or we're kind of concerned about this, and I'm wondering if you're able to bring some heft and bypass these kind of problems of doctors being afraid to write the pain meds.
I think any time that there's additional scrutiny or increase in regulations, I think it's normal for people to be overly cautious. But I think when you're dealing with terminal illness and people who are actively going through the death and dying process, I believe that with education and with really good physicians that understand pain management, I don't necessarily think that we're dealing with the same issues as over-prescribing medications.
Okay, someone who perhaps is 30 and just having chronic back pain, it's never going to go away.
Correct.
And because I've talked to the people who have had these sort of issues. So the regulatory boot is not quite on your neck to the same extent. Then.
Well, I think that it is across the board for all physicians prescribing opioids, but I mean, the reality is we're dealing with people who are dying, and there is a medical necessity to prescribe medications to these people when they're having acute pain management needs.
Okay, very good. So it says here that you are involved with family-centered care.
We are.
What role is the family playing in any of these hospice services at Lovejoy?
Well, I would say that family, first of all, is being defined by the patient we're serving.
Could be close friends in some cases.
Exactly.
Huh?
So that's the first thing. So we always try to start with the person that we're serving, our patient, and then look at his or her circle, what they consider to be family, what their priorities are. I might go in as a social worker and think, wow, these folks are really struggling with putting food on the table. And make note of that and explore that with them to see if there's something that I could do to help with that. Their priority might be something totally different. They always struggle to put food on the table. It's kind of the water they swim in. Their priority might be setting up power of attorney or doing an advance directive or help figuring out VA benefits.
So there are multiple facets of your service.
Yes. So we always start with the patient and then say, what is it you're looking for? And as your family, as you define it, what are you looking for? What can we do to support you?
All right, very good. Lovejoy, even though your main office is based in Grants Pass, we want to make sure that people understand that this is multiple counties that you serve.
That's correct. We come over to Jackson County often. We also have patients that we see in parts of Douglas County as well.
Okay. Yeah, you just want to make sure you understand because a lot of people are thinking, oh, yes, that place in Grants Pass.
Yeah, I think it's a common misperception because we've been here 33 years and our primary office is there, but we have teams that service both counties.
Okay, what about the service costs? How do you handle that?
Well, the cost is essentially, or I would say 90-some-odd% of patients who receive hospice services, it comes through Medicare reimbursement. Medicaid also provides coverage for it, private insurances. And then with Lovejoy Hospice, if there is an inability to pay or there are limited resources, we work out a sliding scale. And if there's an absolute inability to have any resources,
I don't think
it's free.
You don't turn anybody away, do you?
We turn nobody away for service.
All right, very good. You ever do fundraising on the side?
We do. We have one major event per year. It's called our Heart of Summer event that happens in July, and it is a dinner and an auction. And then we usually have lots of donors who just generously give throughout the year in addition to that.
Very good. I also understand that you sometimes get animals and pets involved
we do.
in the. Could you tell us a little bit about that? This is interesting.
Right. We have a program called Pet Partners. We have volunteers with 2 legs and volunteers with 4 legs, a core of teams of people and their dogs that have gone through the Pet Partners.
There is such a comfort with pets and people sometimes, especially
having those
that are
animals come in just opens doors in people's hearts and minds that they can tell stories, they can remember. I think the joy of just petting a soft, sweet dog that's looking into their eyes does so many things for folks who maybe they had a dog for years and now they're too unwell to have a dog or their own. They've outlived their little dog, and to have a volunteer come in and bring that Pet Partners dog in just really boosts their quality of life. They really look forward to it, sometimes more than seeing the people.
And 24-hour access with Lovejoy services, too.
Yes,
right?
That's correct.
24 hours on call. Is it ever too late to get in touch? And I'll just give you my personal experience. When Margaret, my mother-in-law, when she had the final week, she suffered another stroke before she passed away at home a number of years ago. And we had almost considered using hospice services, but she ended up deteriorating so rapidly and ended up not being needed. I mean, what is the story here?
I think that's fairly common. I think people tend to wait oftentimes till they don't necessarily have the best outcomes. So what we like to do is get involved as early as possible. So at the point where you start questioning is it time? It's a really good time to make that call. And hospice will come in and do an informational visit, spend some time with you, answer your questions, help guide you in a dialogue with your physician to really talk about, is it really time for hospice?
Okay, well, it's good service. It really is good to know.
Thank you very much.
And like you said, you've been doing this for 33 years here
Yes.
in Southern Oregon, not just in Grants Pass. It's lovejoyhospice.org is the website where you can read up more on this. And the number, 541-474-1193. Now, it's not the standard sort of business where I ask if you have any specials going on, but but still, it is a special business model.
It is a very special service that we provide.
Nancy,
it really is.
Nancy, we appreciate you coming in.
It's an honor to be able to provide the service to folks in the community. And I would just say there are a lot of myths out there about hospice. People think it's only for cancer. It's not. People think they have to be bedbound. They don't. People think they have to be suffering in terrible pain. That's not true. Again, symptoms can be shortness of breath. It can be weakness.
Mm-hmm.
It can be nausea. It can be terrible anxiety. Also, if people call us, we encourage people to call early, even if they don't think they're quite ready, because we try to find ways to say yes. As in, well, you're not ready in your heart and mind for hospice yet, but maybe we can help you with some problem solving. Maybe we can help you with some resources, maybe through palliative care. So we would encourage people to call, even if they're not sure, because we want to be a resource and a support.
You'll take them through the process. Very good.
Exactly.
All right, Deneen Silva, Nancy Livingood. And we're just out of time, and we appreciate you coming in from Lovejoy Hospice.
Thank you very
Thank you.
much.
474-1193, lovejoyhospice.org.